Still by yourself. All right. And how old's your mom? Single mom, new country?
38, 39. No, but my mom had been here as a teenager.
Okay, all right.
My mom had been here and knew the language and already was running numbers. And then she went back to Cuba. She went back to Cuba. Out of Cuba that night. Just a young kid. Like, remember Vito Corleone? He was half retarded. He got the Ellis Island. He's singing songs and shit. That was my mother, right?
Wait, so they literally took her,
my family,
your whole family,
put whatever pennies they had, as poor as they were,
and said, "You're out."
You're out.
Where?
New York City.
So they were sent to New York City.
Sent to Miami.
Okay, this wasn't a.
She had distant cousins in New York City.
Wow.
She went to New York, stayed with them for a while, snuck into the country. You know, you got to remember, there was no TSA.
Right.
You know, you could just give them a fucking piece of paper then, and if you could fog the bottom of the glass, they let you in. Fog this. Okay, you're in. You know, this is way before anything. Right. You know, there was no drug smuggling. He was about 4 years older than me and me. Then something went down. Like, I couldn't get all the accurate stories. I get bits and pieces from my uncle. He's 80 and he lives in Glendale, and I just went to a Dodger game with him. That's
your source?
So, but whenever I ask him something, he tells me a little bit more than I want to know. So I stopped asking him. You know what I'm saying? So I had to stop. So then they came back, and my mother used that girl's name to get back into the States. When my mother went back to Cuba, white kids, and they were nice kids and stuff, and we had a good time. You know, we played kick the can and stickball and hot peas and butter. Go get your mother. And we would. You ever play hot peas and butter? Go get your mother.
No.
That's when you hide a belt with a metal buckle. You have to hide it. So I hide it, and all of us are playing, and we're in this room, and I'm like, you're hot, but the base is 30 yards away. So if you find the belt, you get to whip us all the way till we find it. And it's up to you whether you want to whip us with the belt or the metal side. So if you whip somebody with the metal side, I was the heartbeat of New York City. I'm 20 blocks from the heartbeat of New York City. 6'5".
Oh, wow.
So I'm hanging out down there on 88th Street playing buck and killing rats. 148th Street,
6 years old, you're killing rats.
Complete different game. First day on 148th Street, they came up to me, how you doing? Ricky, whatever, and all of a sudden they're like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know, I want to play stickball. And they're like, nah, you want to see a body? I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, let's go see a dead body. I'm like, I like these kids. They took me down to West Side Avenue, and they had some guy who had been hit by a car. This is the 70s. This is like 65. There was no CSI. If you got hit by a car, you were there for like 2 or 3 days.
You saw your first dead body?
The first dead body I saw, he was already had the flies on him, and they just threw plywood over him. And he was starting to stink like from 10 feet away. Like he had just been there maybe like these kids were, he was right by the Hudson River. And we would walk down to the Hudson River. And then finally 2 days later, we went down and there was a crime scene, obviously. Some fucking, you know, in those days, people didn't jog. Yeah. It's not like today that there's jogging.
Yeah.
I can kill you.
I
can kill you and drop you on a 170. They'd never find you. Today, these fucking joggers, they're out there looking around. And they always find bodies, joggers. It's not like they find like a $20 bill. You never seen a jogger go, I found an envelope full of money. They always find some lady beat up and raped. What the fuck kind of morning is that? Because my mother did acupuncture. When we were kids, every like Thursday, my mother drove me down to Chinatown to buy minerals and herbs. What good did it do? She snorted coke. It defeats the purpose.
I was just about to ask about the minerals.
When it comes to the minerals, the Colombians always win. You know what I'm saying? I used to go to acupuncture to stop snorting coke.
Yeah.
And she'd put like a needle in my ear, and I'd still snort coke that night. The needle would fly out of my ear. Crying all night. And then my mother came home at 3, and when I got up that morning, my mother went to give me the Tita was asleep on the couch, and my mother was in the room, like making eggs, getting the emulsive of cod ready. And here I am sharpening a knife. Like, I was that crazy at that age. Like, I was sharpening a knife, and my mom was like, "What's going on with you, Mo? Let me tell you." And my poor mother, God rest her soul. My poor mother, she's hungover. She probably did a gram of blow the night before and dirty. I was all my $20. I'm gonna stab this bitch. And as I went, like, I was sharpening, and I'm dead serious. Like, I remember I was ready to kill her for my $20.
This is March 9th, 1971.
March 9th, I was going to wake her up like Henry Hill's wife with a knife to her throat and say, "You better give me my $20. I'm going to stab you right now." It got so bad in the living room, and my mother had to hold me back, that my mother gave me the $20.
Tita just wouldn't give it up?
Tita would not give it up, and I didn't talk to Tita for months after that. I hit her in the head with a shoehorn about a year later because she wouldn't let me watch Hawaii Five-0. Hawaii Five-0 was on, and she told me how to go to bed. I'm remarried before all this shit happened. Like, I got good after my mom remarried. My mom got married 50 years ago, 2 or 3 days ago, when the moon landed, when the people, jerk-offs landed on the moon. Whatever the fuck. That wasn't even the moon. You could tell it was fucking Santa Barbara dirt. That wasn't even the moon. And I'm not even a conspiracy theory. There's no way that was the moon. That looked like Yankee Stadium with dirt on the floor. I knew the neighbor was at work. So I said, "I told you my mother's not home." And he goes, "Well, we could either go back to school." And this is a true story, guys, whether you believe me or not. I go, "You hungry?" And he goes, "I could eat." I said, "Let's take a walk over to the Blimpie base." Do you know I bought this motherfucker a Blimpie and he let me go? In 1969,
that's unbelievable.
I bought this guy a Blimpie and he goes, "All right, we can't walk out of here together. Walk out, you make a left and I'll make a right." And that was it. I never saw the truant officer no more. So I kept playing hooky because they would call the house and my mom wouldn't answer the phone. I liked school, but I didn't like that 12 to 3 session. Suck my dick. We only need 9 to 12 and I'm good. That 12 to 3, it don't work for me. You know what I'm saying? It's nice out. You want to sit me in a classroom like a prisoner of war. You know what I'm saying? So one day I go to Central Park. I had a lunchbox. My mother gave me a lunchbox. They made me bring a lunchbox, like a Beatles or something. I fucking hated a lunchbox. They had you ever have like white kids, you motherfuckers get like a sandwich and an apple and like a napkin and like a pudding. Not Spanish people. We get like Cuban soup in a thermos, cologne, a sandwich, rosary beads, a candlelight while we're eating, a napkin, Spanish music. They fit a radio in there. They do everything. Like, it weighs 80 pounds. Like, if I flew United with that thing, they charge me a yardstick with a little Beetle lunchbox. So I figured if I told my mother I lost it, she wouldn't get me another lunchbox. So I went to Central Park to throw it in the lake. And as I went to get to the lake, these 3 little Irish kids came up to me like, "What's in the lunchbox?" And I would have gave it to them, but I was like, "You're not taking it." And they're like, "We want the lunchbox." So I hit one of the kids with the lunchbox. It opened up, and I'm fighting the 3 kids. I'm getting my ass kicked. I'm 6'5". I don't know what I'm doing. And the kid hits me in the head with a thermos. Remember those metal thermoses with the glass inside? That one, and it hit me in the head, and I touched my hand. I had blood all over it, and I fucking ran home. And they couldn't take me to the hospital because my mother was in the bar in Jersey. So what they did was they sent me to the hospital, and they had to wait for my mom to get the consent form, and then they stitched me up. Do you know when my mom found out I played hooky, after they stitched me up, she beat me at the hospital. Like, she was just beating me at the hospital. Then another time,
you're in the right spot.
Let me tell you how, you know me, I'm in the mafia at 6. I don't say nothing to nobody. I don't say nothing. Christmas Eve, I put it in, fuck it, it's good for, something will happen.
Something will happen.
By fucking February, I'm walking around with like a tumor. Like, my ear got big, they couldn't figure out what it was. And here's my mother coming home every night at 3, exhausted, because my mother fucking worked. Let's get one thing straight. My mother was a functioning alcoholic. what most people do sober, my mother could eat your ass alive, and with logic. She was business savvy, happy hour before happy hour was invented. Just a fucking animal of a woman. What are we talking about? Oh.
Your ears.
So my mom would, I'm allowed to play in front of the house. I was an arsonist. I used to light things on fire and then piss on them to turn them off. And then one day I didn't have enough piss.
Turn it off.
And one day I didn't have enough piss and the building next to me went on fire.
Nah.
Oh, yes, I did.
Set a building on fire.
205, well, the back of it. Not the whole building didn't burn on fire. Just the entrance to the back.
Okay, that's all.
It was like a stairs to the bottom.
Yeah.
And I would take newspapers and I would light them on fire and then pee. And then one day I showed my friends, I go, come here, I got a trick. And I threw a bunch of newspapers down there and lit it on fire. And I started peeing. The fire got bigger and bigger. Now, I lived on 205 West 88 A Street on apartment 3A. And I didn't. My living room had a view of 88th Street from Broadway. But my bedroom did not have that. I had a view to a parking garage lot that was empty. So people would play stickball and they would play tag in that yard. So I would take pennies and throw them out the window, and people go, who's throwing pennies? You know what I'm saying? You walk up the stairs and you knock on people's door. They refuse to do that. They shook down business owners.
They go to business.
6 of us would walk into a business and go trick or treat. If that motherfucker didn't put a quarter in each of our baskets, like we didn't accept candy. Like those kids.
That shit that everybody gets on.
We don't want
They're
candy.
not ready for you.
We're not ready for candy. We don't take candy here. That's how tough these kids. When bookies came in with mistresses, I would go over and talk to them and like throw hints that I was going to talk about the wife. And I would and I would talk to them.
Break you off a little something.
Yeah, until they were like, what's it going to take for you to leave? Give me $5.
What's it going to take for you to leave?
What a James Bond knife. Here, type up a James Bond knife from the 70s. There you go. Look at the size of this knife. When I was 7, I bought a James Bond knife, and she surprise attacked me. Smart, street smart. He was that intelligent. He played you like a fiddle. If he had to meet you to talk to you and he wasn't sure about you, if he had to meet you at 9, he'd come here at 6 and plant 2 guns and a knife. So, I mean, this guy was a genius. He was a fucking genius.